my parents have, experienced a little bit of that, so there's vicarious experience that I have. And if you have had livestock, they take a lot of hands. Okay, how many of you have cats and dogs? Cats or dogs? Any kind of pets? Oh, all right. How many of you have done dog sitting or cat sitting? Oh, that doesn't relate very well. Okay, what else is there? How many of you have done babysitting? Babysit for your cousins or like your nephews, niece, even just for like little babies or toddlers, even just for 3-4 hours. Yeah, so some of you do, right? What does it take to keep that child for like 3-4 hours? Morning.
A lot of energy.
A lot of energy. You'd better be a Lakers fan. Okay. Yeah, you'd better be energetic. You'd better be running around. If it's a toddler, I don't know which one is worse or which one is better. Because I've done babysitting for 6 weeks old. Oh, 6 weeks old. Rubbery. And to 14 months old in the same room. Yeah, 8 of them. No time to rest. No time to sit down. No time, like, you're constantly giving instructions. No. Like you have to pull them, you have to feed them, you have to, go to sleep. You have to play with them. There's lots of energy. And you can't take your eyes off. The moment you take your eyes off, what happens? Lena, I think you might have some experience. What happens if you take your eyes off?
Everything is like a work ship.
Yes, it's like a shipwreck. It's a chaos. Like something. So example. There's a reason I give you this example. Okay. This 10 months old, she decided to walk at that age. She's fast. She has strong legs, just like her dad. Okay, and she's like running around. And her nickname was Miss Alligator because she bites everyone. Okay, so her name was. This is like some 20 years ago, so you can relax. Like I'm not talking about anything private, confidential. Okay, her name was Shauna. I remember to this day, and because I loved her, but she was a troublemaker, and other colleagues had a concern because she bites everyone, right, including you, like including the caregivers. It's like, it goes like this, and then so the moment you take your eyes off from her or another kid because you are busy taking care of other kids, there's a scream. Somebody got bit. Hi, Shauna. Or, something happened, and then Shauna was opposite. She's like, she's busy, but there's a silence for 3 seconds. You better watch out. There's silence for 3 seconds? What are you doing? She's like, she was looking underneath the crib, another baby's sitting there, and she's like, there's a bug. Centipede. You're not supposed to eat that. And she's about to put that into her mouth, right? Because the little kids want to experience everything through mouth, right? And so, you better go grab her, take the bug out of her hands. So something happens the moment you take your eyes off, and sheep are kind of similar. Even if you didn't have any experience with livestock, little sheep, big sheep, come on in. Yeah. The shepherd is like a parent, and they can't take it. And by the way, let's thank our parents, because they went through a heck of time trying to raise us. Some of my co-workers are having new babies, and suddenly they became unavailable because it's so busy. It takes a lot to raise a human being. And so shepherd is the same way. The sheep, the moment you take your eyes off, they're gone all straight. And you can't, that's why the Bible talks about the lost sheep a lot. And they go somewhere and they're like, where is this kid? And if you leave the rest of them, they're kind of, herding together. They're together, but they, you better watch out because they may go astray too, right? The sheep are known to be not so smart. And so they tend to follow the leader very well to the degree that if the sheep at the front, let's go guys, and then, you know, it's like a cliff. Have you been to a cliff before? Like an Australian cliff, well, we don't have to go far away, it's in the United States. Lots of cliffs, right? And underneath the cliffs, either it's like a brown, you're not supposed to hit that, or you have water, which is also not a good news because it's deep ocean, right? So the leader goes, all right, follow my lead, guys, and then goes toward the edge of the cliff. And then this kid keeps going, all right? This is a full-grown sheep we're talking about. Experienced, mature sheep. And like, oh, let me keep going, because they have bad eyesight, they have bad judgment, and they just tend to fall off the cliff. And the guys right behind them haven't learned the lessons, because, oh, that guy disappeared, oh, we better stop. No, they just keep following. So the entire herd goes in the ocean. So as a shepherd, you can't take your eyes off because you don't know what's gonna happen. And once they are laid down, so they don't know how to rest either. So this is all hearsay. I wasn't there. My only experience is going to an Australian zoo. I went to Australia, and there was a petting zoo. And you know, everyone's out. There's a little bar, but that doesn't keep anybody. So I and my friends got hungry. So she and I just had little crackers. You rip it open. There's a sound, right? And then the sheep, like the reason we turned to the snacks is because we called them the sheep, and they were turning their back against us, and they were not even looking. So I was like, all right, so I guess they're not even looking. Let's just eat. So the moment that we did that, they turned around because they heard the noise of snacks. They ran toward us, charged at us. They jumped on us, like they stood up. The sheep stood up. Have you seen that before? And you know, they leaned on me, took away the cookie from my hand, licked all my hand. Like this is, I'm talking about 1 second. This is happening. So close. And I was like, ah! And then at that moment, somebody took a picture of me. So there's a picture, like me screaming, and the sheep is on me. Like, so, I'm telling you, my experience with sheep is like that. But other than that, I've never had to raise sheep. It takes much more to take care of the sheep. And so the shepherd has to really love each one of them, and they have to know each one of them. Otherwise, how would you know when someone is missing? Yeah? And then when there's a missing one, he goes after that missing one. Somewhere like stranded in the middle of the bushes. And one thing they recognize is the shepherd's voice. It's really interesting. You can Google it, YouTube it. They're there. Oh, you know, they have this sound that reaches like the horizon, and then the sheep hears it, they're like, and then they gather. That's one thing that's about sheep, but they're not known for being smart. So they don't know how to rest. You have to lay them down on the ground to let them. And then afterward, you better get them up. So it takes a lot of hands. So David was a shepherd boy, essentially a shepherd. He was only like a teenager, maybe 13 or 14. By the time he started writing these songs, you know, like at least the inspiration came from those years, teenage years, and then later on, even after he became so he started as a faithful shepherd boy. The whole family despised him. There's a whole story behind that. If you read 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, you're gonna be able to read that story. But he was despised by the family to the degree that the father, when the prophet, Prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king by God's instruction, he wasn't even called in. David was like still outside of the field, just being among the smelly sheep. And he was just looking at the stars, counting the stars, talking with God. That simple-minded boy was actually a significant person in God's eyes. People all despised him because, well, what does a teenager know? And he's only a shepherd boy anyways. And he wasn't bright. He wasn't very skillful. The only thing that he did, he knew God, he communicated with God constantly in prayers, and he later testifies. Whenever like a lion or bear comes after his sheep, oh, by the way, you better watch over your sheep because there are predators, right? And they come, especially at nighttime, and the bear is trying to take away the sheep, already has the sheep, like maybe in his mouth, okay? And what do you do when you see a bear right in front of you? What are you supposed to do?
Walk back.
Okay, that's one tip that I heard, but I also heard
Drop dead.
yeah, drop dead. Barking, maybe not a very smart idea. They're fast. You think bears are slow? They're fast. In a split second, they grab you and they tear you. Yeah, there are some news about like a bear attacks, right? So don't run away. They're faster and they'll get you. Maybe dropping dead is a smart idea, but then it's really scary. Bark back and try to look big. Not quite sure if that's gonna work. We better consult some experts, but yeah. So they're really fast. Like in a split second. Oh wow. Yeah, very fast. And so when the bear gets your sheep, you better not go after him. Oh, he's got his thing. Like his instinct is all after food, and they are hungry. You better not attack them. But David prayed in a split second, Lord, help me, because he was so close with God. When you have a close relationship with someone, what happens? That person is going to do. It's going to be more responsive to you than a stranger. True? God is the same way. If you're close to him, just like David was, it's going to respond very quickly. Not that he's not insensitive about strangers, no, but it's just a close relationship. It's important. And David had that relationship. He was not smart. He was not a significant person at all, but the only thing that he knew was to communicate with God. So he did. He called on the Lord, Lord, help me. The bear took my sheep. And he sent his angels. And the angels went with him. So little boy, 13, 14-year-old boy, what can he do? But he went after his sheep, took the sheep out of the paws or the mouth of the lion or bears each time. He saved his sheep. So he has that experience. Now, why am I talking about David so much? Because the Psalms mostly were written by David. He was a shepherd boy, but later on, he became a king. There's a long story, and very dynamic, interesting story. He suffered a lot. So, if you're called to be a leader, I almost guarantee you, you're gonna go through some hardship. Because you need training, you need endurance, you need AQ. How many of you have heard of IQ? How many? All right, IQ. How many of you have heard of EQ? All right, emotional quotient, right? How many of you have heard of AQ? It's called adversity quotient. Adversity quotient. Come on in. All right, so this is not very dark, so I'm gonna have to grab another pen. Adversity quotient. This one is not too dark either. Let's see. These ones work well. Oh yeah, there you go. Adversity quotient. What is that? What do you think it is? How many of you have faced adversities in your life? Challenges, difficulties? So adversity means difficulties or challenges in your life. Yeah, how many of you have had some challenges in your life? Essentially, almost all of you, unless your parents overprotected you. But even if you grew up in an overprotective family, at some point you will face, because your parents cannot hover around you all the time, right? You will face some difficulties, right? How many of you faced some challenges when you in the process of moving to this country? Yeah, it's not a piece of cake. Some of you are still going through some transitions. I know. Yeah, it's not difficult. It's not easy. How many of you went through some challenges acquiring a new language? Yeah. How about new culture? Yeah, not easy. But after that, as a first, did you get anything good out of that? Yeah. Yeah? Can you tell me more about that?
Me?
Yeah, sure. I forgot your name again.
Pan. P-A-N.
P-A-N. Yeah, Pan. Yeah. Yeah.
My difficulty was when I was in college, I spent a lot of time working in the bookstore, and because America has a lot of races, so we always have to be careful about what we say. So, but back in Asia, it's all Korean or it's Chinese. We don't have that mixed diversity culture here, out there. So I was very careful about what I said, and I always have to think about before I speak.
Yeah, and then your customers they can get mad at you, maybe your boss, or make your life difficult.
Yes. But what I've learned that once you really know about different cultures, it's actually very interesting too. And then once you have all the knowledge from it and you speak to people respect you.
Yeah, people respect you, and actually they want to hire you just because you're bilingual, trilingual. It's a benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And in the process, your AQ increased. I bet you. You are stronger than before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like a cliche. What doesn't break you makes you stronger. We need to interpret it right, and it doesn't apply to every situation. Some situations you better avoid. It's not smart to be in there. But then generally, it's true. What doesn't break you makes you stronger. Kakeru,
Yes.
would you say it's true?
Yeah.
Yeah? Can you share one experience of you overcoming something difficult?
When I come here,
No, yeah, sure. Or anything that you can remember.
yeah, I couldn't speak English when I come here, so it was difficult.
How did you overcome? Or are you overcoming? How are you overcoming?
Kind of stressful.
I'm sorry?
It was stressful.
Stressful, yeah. It is a stress to deal with everyday life, yeah? You have to stretch yourself, like your brain has to work faster. So I'm an interpreter actually, and so when you interpret simultaneously, say like one person is speaking here, and then I'm simultaneously going with it, like through a receiver or something. You have a headset, your people are sitting, and you're simultaneous. At that time, your brain is working 4 times faster than normal. Yeah, that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of stress. And although you're not formally simultaneously interpreting, quickly grab your seat. Yeah, although you're not formally interpreting, in a different culture, you are speaking a different language, and at that time, your brain is definitely working faster. So, yes, it is a stress, and it drains your energy. So, like after a while, when I was first adjusting to the American culture in high school, I was like, I love my friends, and it's much easier, trust me, than your adulthood trying to adjust to a new culture, and people are more receptive. I had more friends, and very compassionate friends, who took me to church too, and I was like, why do I have to go to church? Okay, so there's another story, but it was major stressful. all day long, like 7 hours of class in English. Oh, I came back home, I was like, I don't feel like saying even a word anymore. Yeah. So it is a stress. But now that I look back, I appreciate not the stress, but even as I was stressed out, my adversity quotient increased. I'm a stronger person, and if you have acquired a new language or just the new culture once, the second time you go to another culture, it's going to be easier process. That's given. Yeah, and because you had to overcome, sometimes you feel small. Oh, I can't even speak this word, and this person says, "What?" Some people are not very polite. Instead of saying, "Oh, excuse me," they're like, "What?" She doesn't speak a word of it. What I heard, she doesn't speak a word of English. Oh, I spoke pretty well back in master's program. When I was in the master's program, my English was fine, but it's just that I was shy. And at a store, this lady, a Caucasian lady, and I'm not against Caucasians, okay? But she was with her friend, I guess, shopping at Target, and then she was asking me, assuming that I'm a storekeeper because I have this Asian face, right? And she was like, "Okay, so I'm looking for this and that shirt. Where is it?" And I was like dumb because like, why are you asking me? And I don't know what that shirt is or where that is. And I'm thinking, my brain is turning, and I was looking at her for 2 seconds, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, she doesn't speak a word of English." And then she went away. So that can happen. Okay, so I'm just trying to empathize with you, what you might have to go through in a different culture or learning a new language. Yeah, and I'm not quick. Like I became quicker. Better be, right? That's part of adjusting. But I used to be like calmer, slower. Like I couldn't like be quickly responsive. Like what something happens, I'm like, all right, what's going on right now? You have to go out for me to figure out. And they're like, "You should speak a word of English." And then she went away. I'm like, what just happened? And then later on, I processed it, right? So things like that can happen. I'm pretty sure when you were in German culture, maybe you experienced something like that, something similar to it, and many of you. So David, back to David. He went through a whole lot. Not only he had to face many different cultures, by the way, Philistines and many different cultures. He had to actually stay there. He had to survive. But not only that, he was despised by his family. He didn't have an easy life. The enemies were after him, and he was surrounded by enemies until the moment he became a king. But he became a true leader because now he had a higher adversity quotient, and because he had more wisdom. Would you say adjusting to a new culture takes wisdom? Probably. Yeah, I think you're wiser now. Yeah, dealing with the new culture, like you know what not to say, what to say, how to say, a little better than before. Yeah. So Psalm of David. Let's just read it. That's his background. And when he became a king, he wasn't proud. He was not like, "Oh, now they have all the power and authority. I'm gonna do what I wish to do." No, he didn't do that. He was like, God of the universe, who watched over me when I was little, when I was in the field, when I went after the bears and lions, as a king, respected by so many people, so much power. I'm gonna just let God rule over this world through me. That was his attitude. All right, so I'm gonna butcher your name, or I'm gonna not know name or forget your name, so please forgive me. Could I know your names, please?
Jen.
Jen.
James.
Jin.
James.
Oh, Jess.
James.
How do you spell?
Do you know LeBron James?
Okay.
James.
James.
Yes.
Jen and James.
Yes.
And I have old ears, please forgive me. Okay, so yeah, even my own language sometimes I don't understand. So James and Jen, all right, and Shona, right? Pan, thank you for being gracious. Lina, and I surely know you.
Yongyu.
Yongyu. Young Helen. And what's your name again?
Nona.
Yuna. Yuna.
Nona.
Oh, Nuna.
Yeah.
Nuna, okay. What origin is that? Is it Latin origin? Nuna sounds like it. Oh, okay, never mind, okay. Maybe it's Japanese, right? Japanese name?
Chinese.
Chinese name, oh. And then,
Peter.
Peter and
Daniel.
Daniel. Gosh, I get it mixed up. Okay, and Antonella, I remember you. Takara, I remember you. What was your name again? Gentlemen.
You say.
You say. And what's your name again? Your name? Yes.
Takuro.
Takuro?
Yeah.
Alright, we'll see how it goes. I may not pass the test. Okay, so let's go. Pam, could you please read verse 1?
Oh Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me.
Yeah, verse 2.
You know when I sit down or stand up, you know my thoughts even when I'm far away.
Yeah, so he's talking to God. Shota, could you read 3 and 4?
You see me when I travel and when I less at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it. No.
Yes. Nina, 5 and 6.
You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand.
Alright, and I have to go to you again. Yongyu.
I can never escape from your spirit. I
I'm
can
sorry?
never. I can
Oh, you're
never,
reading, okay.
I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there.
Yes. Wow, he's in the grave too. Alright, and Nuna. 9 and 10? Okay, you can skip it if you want. Yeah, Helen?
If I ride the wings of the morning, if I do by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and its travels.
Yeah, and Peter? 11 and 12?
I could use the darkness to hide me and the light around me to be content. But even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and lights are the same to you.
Yes, Daniel?
You made all the delicate inner part of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me the wonderful complex. You varnish its members. How will I know it?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Your name again?
Takuro?
Takuro.
Yeah.
Yes. 15 and 16?
You watch me as I was being born in seclusion,
Yes.
as I was woven together in the dark of the womb.
Yeah.
You told me before I was born, every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed.
Did you guys know that? Isn't it marvelous? Before we were born, every day of our life was recorded in God's book. Oh, every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. Oh, that gives me a chill. So even today, what we're going to experience, how we're going to live, good or bad, is written on His book. All right, makes me think again. All right, and you say 17 and 18?
How precious are you thought about me.
is an all God. They cannot be numbered. I can even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me.
Now when we're asleep or wake up, oh, he's there. All right, Kakeru?
19?
19 and 20.
Oh God, if only you would destroy the wicked of my life, you mother. They plus you, your enemy, make sure your name.
Yes. Can I ask her name?
Taishi?
Taishi?
Yes.
Taishi. Okay, 20, 21.
Alright, shouldn't hurt those who hurt you. Shouldn't
Despise.
those who oppose you. Yes, I hate them. Is total hated who your enemies are my enemies.
And then, yes, that's okay. Jen?
Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life.
Oh yeah. Oop. James, we're gonna turn to you later. All right. So David was in close communication with God, and he was always filled by the Holy Spirit, and he was inspired by the Holy Spirit, and he came up with this song. Like, do you guys sometimes like write journals? I mean, yeah,
every day.
every day. Oh, it's a great habit. It's releasing. It leaves a record. Later, you look back, and there's so much to reflect on, and you can even use that for other purposes in the future. Some people come up with a book. Some people actually put that on the resume. Some people come up with a speech. It just gives you and then you can look back and this is how I lived before. How many of you have written a song? Really? Even when you were little? We're all musicians.
When I was about primary school.
Yeah. You just hum and put the lyrics into it, even if you don't know how to do the notation, right? And when you learn that from music class, you of course can do that as well. I think we're naturally kind of creative. We can write songs and things like that. So when David was doing that, he was a musician. He was harping. That was one of the, just like today's culture, like piano or violin, pretty common, right? Harp was pretty common in his culture. He was a good harper. When he played music, the evil spirits left. Very interesting, right? Music has some power, and especially good music, especially if you're inspired by God, music has power. And so one day he was called in by King Saul, who had what looked like mental illness, but he was actually possessed by the evil spirit, and he played the harp, and the evil spirit left. And so he is inspired by the Holy Spirit, and he's confessing. He's one with God right now, and he's confessing. Oh Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. Does it scare you a little bit? I'm like, ooh, God knows everything, because I know that I'm not always 100% good. Far from it. I think of certain things, I imagine certain things that are not really, nothing illegal, nothing people wouldn't say it's evil, but it's not pleasing to God, because God has a completely different standard. He is perfectly holy. There's nothing wrong in him, that there's no deceit in him, there's no pride or jealousy or unholy things in him. And so compared to his standard, who he is, not very righteous, not very holy. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I would encourage you to go out and do good for other people around you if you can. Just a little, I think I shared with you, even the little things that you do matter and has a ripple effect. So an example this morning, I was driving up and I'm kind of in a hurry. Driving up and then there's a little alley and only one car can pass. And then there was another car that was passing. Ooh, right. So that happened last night too. And I'm trying to go home. I'm exhausted from work. And then I'm driving, and then there's somebody who comes up. Oh, one of us has to stay. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll just move to the side. Come on in, so that the person can come out. Like it doesn't matter how far you've been. Just do some kindness, and then that has a ripple effect. There was one company that I worked for before, and I moved out of the way, in my car, and then the next day on, I saw that the whole parking lot, like people were kind of, moving out of other people's way to let them go first. One person opens the door for you. Do you feel pretty good? Yeah. And then you feel like you want to do that for other people too, right? Little kindness. Yeah. Anything that you can do. Like there's brothers or sisters who are unhoused. Essentially homeless, right? They would appreciate your water in a water bottle. They would appreciate your jacket or sweater, or they would appreciate like a few dollars that you have in your hands. Yeah. There was one person who was sitting in front of CVS. Do you guys go to CVS? He was unhoused and he was just sitting there with his backpack, and I was like, oh, okay, let me just talk to him. Don't do it at nighttime or like very when there's nobody else and it's a dark place, don't go there. But when he was out in the road, and I was just, okay, let me just talk to him. So talking, because not many people want to talk to those people, right? So even just talking to them is helpful. So I said, hey, what happened? And he's like, I just got released from a prison after serving 19 years or something. Essentially his young years are gone. He's in middle age now, right? At least 40s or 50s. And he's like, I learned my lesson. I want to live a new life. And my sister is in Texas. I want to go there. I have no money. So I'm begging right now. So I just grabbed him the cash that I had. Hey, it's not much, but I want to pray for you. Can I pray for you? So I prayed for him so that he will have a safe travel back to his sister's house in Texas, and he appreciated that. So like little things, I mean that's not too difficult, right? Little things you can do. It changes the world. There's a ripple effect, and more people are going to do that. Because not only because it is good in itself, right? But God knows everything about what we do, what we think. Yeah, and He's happy when we do little things, little kindness. When I sit down or stand up, my thoughts even when I'm far away. And God is not holding this stick. All right, let me see if you make a mistake. He's not watching for that purpose. He's watching with loving eyes. Oh, I want to find something good in you. I want to see, Shota, when you do good or when you're kind to other people, like I want to catch that moment. Helen, God wants to spot that moment. Oh, Helen, you are so loving. You're so thoughtful. Or you're overcoming your adversity so well. I'm proud of you. He wants to catch that moment. Kakeru, you say the same way. He is watching over you, wanting to spot goodness in you, right? That's why he knows when we sit down or rise or sleep or wake. You see me when I travel, and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say, even before I say it. Then why do you need to pray? You still want to pray because I've never been a parent, but I have to utilize the illustration of parents a lot because that's, I think, the best illustration for describing God. If you have a little kid, of course you know what they need. As mom and dad, you will pretty much, Lena, would that be true? Like after a while, all right, she's hungry. Oh, he had poo-poo. Oh, you know that he needs a change. You know it, but you want them to say it after a certain age, right? After like 14 months or so, you expect them to say, "Mama, Dada, change, hungry." You know, like you want them to gradually learn the language and learn to communicate you. That is expected instead of like you know, oh, he said it. Oh, that means he's hungry. Oh, that means he needs change. Like instead of that, you want them to say it, right? And you want them to say to you, although you are lovey-dovey with your kid, like, oh, you're just hugging each other, kissing each other, but you want them to say, would you prefer? Would you be happy if they say, "Mom, I love you"? Yeah, definitely. Mom, I'm sorry. Yeah, instead of like not saying anything or like, you know, expressing it in a different way, you want them to say it, right? The same thing with God. He wants us to say it to Him. And if we don't say it, how do we know if the prayer has been answered? Yeah, you have to say it or write it down. You better write it down. Otherwise, later you look back and how would you know certain prayers have been answered? Yeah, God faithfully answers every prayer because He's a faithful God. Yeah, He's one true God, faithful God, and He answers all our prayers. And so that's why we have sometimes prayer log. And that faithful God goes before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Yeah, so the entire Bible actually is written in the context. Do you come from a context? You come from Japanese context. You come from Romanian context. You come from Chinese context, Korean context, Malaysian context. Okay, so this is written in Hebraic, Jewish context. God is not Jewish. He's not Hebrew, but He chose certain people. And so this Bible, we are talking about Jewish culture, Hebraic culture. So they place their hands on you, especially parents place their hands on the children and say blessings. And actually those blessings happen. You know that? Very powerful. They name their children in a certain way and with certain meaning. And that actually happens. Wow. Yeah. So you better name your children nicely because it's going to determine their life. Yeah. Do some of the Asian cultures have that? Yeah, you gotta name your children well.
I have a brother. His name was named by we call it master. You know, some master who's really because in China, Jesus was not really advertised around China. So we have like Buddhists or other things. So we have master.
Oh yeah.
So my brother's name was named by them.
Oh.
It cost a lot of money though.
Well, it has to do with your destiny, so you.
I know, right?
Oh yeah. So your name matters, and in Jewish culture, the same thing. The name matters, and He says, you place your hand. God, according from Jewish perspective, God lays His hand on everybody to bless, and that blessing comes true. So our God is a God who blesses. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. When you find out that this is not just a cliche, this is not just the ancient book of the Bible of some kind of religion, when you actually get to know God and all of a sudden the realization, like, I don't want to say enlightenment, but there's a moment, you know what? It is true. Why did I not know this before? When you have that moment, you'll be so overjoyed. Oh, God, who is so high and lofty and powerful and holy, loves me. He knows me. Wow, such knowledge is too wonderful for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the grave, you're there. If I ride in the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me. See, he's not watching with a stick, trying to catch the moment you make a mistake. No, he's like, he wants to guide you. He wants to bless you. That's why he's watching over. Even there your hand will guide me, and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me, the light around me to become night, but even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. What does that mean? The light and darkness, like I talked about blackout, electricity being shut off, yeah, power outage, entire town power outage. Have you had that before? I was in school. There was a power outage. Yay! You go home. Nobody can study. Oh, it's really dark, and especially at nighttime, and if you have power outage, there's practically nothing you can do. I mean, you can light up the candle, but what you can do is kind of limited. Yeah. But to God, the light is the same as darkness. What does that mean? To us, it makes a huge difference. Can you imagine the sun not rising? Oh, it'll be miserable. We won't have the heat. We won't have the light. We'll be like bump into each other. Nobody can go out because there'll be so many incidences. But to God, it doesn't make a difference because He's not limited by anything. We're limited by time, right? So cherish your moments. I think I lived my life too busily and I regret. Take a moment, take a breath, go to the nature, reflect on your journal, do something with your family and friends, enjoy those moments. Because one day you'll realize you're in a different cycle, you're in a different season, and you're not able to enjoy those things that you used to enjoy a lot. Yeah. So try to take advantage of the opportunities, appreciating them, enjoying them. Yeah. But to God, He's not limited by time, season, night or day, years. He's not limited by space. He's not limited by. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't rest. He's always up and watching over us. And He's not overwhelmed by anybody's prayers. We talked about Bruce Almighty. He was overwhelmed when he was playing God by all the prayers. He couldn't handle it. Oh, stop. But He's not. God is not overwhelmed. He listens to every single little thing that we pray and ask Him to do. It will come through. And so David is saying, yes, to you, night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. So David was not there when God created the universe or God created human beings. He wasn't there, but he's inspired by the Spirit and he's seeing it through his guts. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, seeing with your guts. So with our eyes, I'm kind of nearsighted. How many of you are nearsighted? Astigmatism, all right. Farsighted, okay, so we have some vision problems. Some people can see really far, especially say people in Mongolia. They have to see. They're like, if we're 20/20 with our glasses, their vision is like 4 times better than 20/20. But even then, they're limited. They can't surely see the other side of the globe. No. They can't see at nighttime. We're limited, but God's sight is not limited. Yeah, He's not limited by space. So He was there when our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents lived, and He lives today. He knows what happened all from the beginning to the end. Do you know that the universe is finite? It's not infinite. It's finite. There is an end to its cycle. Yeah, just like you and me. Expiration date is there. Yeah, but God has no expiration date. He's always there. He's everlasting. Yeah. So, by the way, how many of you look like your mom? Your appearance. Yeah? How many of you look like your dad? Yeah, I'm a little more like my dad. I'm a combination, but more like my dad. So it's because what? You inherited those genes. Genetics is a big thing. And yeah, these days people do genetic engineering. Yeah? And genetic engineering can be helpful, but not very helpful either. Non-GMO, and we prefer non-GMO. The natural state, the way God created, is better for us. Yeah, GMO's no good. But genetics, if you look at the code, you can read the code. Each individual has different genes. Wow, each of us have different fingerprints. Even the twins have different fingerprints. Yeah, well, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. And David, before the era of genetics, he didn't know anything about science. It was like thousands of years ago. Genetics was not there, but he's seeing with his guts, like his spiritual eyes. You know, when we have bad eyesight, we can't see. And we can't see the spiritual matters with our eyes, right? But there are times when our spiritual eyes are open. We start seeing things. Do you know that? Do you believe that? I'm not talking about something strange. It's natural. Many people have experienced that. Yeah, for example, this is like one of the common examples. This lady, unfortunately, her husband was dying of cancer. So she had to be in the hospital when he was in the, is that urgent care? Like, urgent care. So people all know he's dying. Okay, he's dying. And so a few days before he passed, she was anxious. She was a believer. She was a Christian, and she was sure of salvation because she put her trust in Jesus. But her husband was not, and she was afraid that her husband would go to hell. Not because he was a bad person, but just because he did not know. He needed to rely on the blood of Jesus. I think I explained briefly about this before, but long story short, she was really concerned that he might go to hell. So like, he's dying, and you can see the symptoms of dying, right? The machine tells you, everything tells you, the doctor knows, and so she's really worried. She herself was not a strong believer. She was just going to church like every once in a while, but at that time she was like, you know what, I better save my husband because he's passing. So she went around asking people in the hospital. It's a true testimony, I can show you. Looking for anybody who can share the gospel. And there was a chaplain, I think, hospital chaplain, and he came and shared about Jesus with her husband, and he accepted. It was like, he couldn't really like talk very much, but he was like, like this. So the chaplain prayed the prayers, and he accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior. That was maybe 3 days before he passed away. And the day he was, so 3 days before he accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior, and a week before that, the reason she was so panicky is because he started screaming. Like, so say, her name is, say, Lisa, okay? Lisa, don't let me leave by myself, Lisa. And so she's like, what's going on? Who's taking you? And he would wake up and he was like, oh, somebody's trying to take me away to hell. He was telling her. Yeah. So then, and she's like, it's so hard to take care of the sick and someone who's dying, right? And so she was like, oh, I'm so concerned. And then the next day it's the same thing. Lisa, don't let me leave. And he was just like so panicking. And he's normally not like that. Okay, he's a calm person. He is kind of confident, normally. But he was screaming. And she was so like, oh, what's going on? What can I do to make him feel better? And then later he shared, somebody's trying to take me away. Don't let me go by myself. It's so scary. To this dark place. I don't want to go there. But he's dying. He's gonna end up somewhere, right? And so that's why she went around the entire hospital. She's not that kind of person. She's like a little bit arrogant. She's like, it's like, I don't beg. She was like that kind of person. But at that time, she was so desperate. She went around. Somebody tell him about Jesus. And so somebody came and shared the gospel, and he accepted. So 3 days before his passing, and he was taking his last breath. So the machine tells you like, oh, it's low, a little bit better low, like the heartbeat and everything, and then he stopped screaming once he accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior. And then on the day of passing, she was there, right there, seeing him dying, and he had this big smile, and she's never seen that before. And then suddenly everything dropped and he passed away. He died. So she was sure that he was not screaming, he was not going to that dark place, but he was taken by someone to a better place. And he was so happy, he didn't want to resist. So that was a major thing. And so 3 days before, by the way, the main point I'm trying to make is she saw, he was lying down there, right? And his spirit looked like his body. It's very interesting, right? So I guess our spirits look like us, right? And so it was like a little bit outside his body, like 1/3. And then she's like, well, what is this? Why am I seeing this, right? And then day 2, so 2 days before passing, 1/2 of his spirit was outside the body, and she saw that. What is this? And then the 3rd day was completely out. So I guess when we die, our spirits leave like that. My grandma, so I come from a Buddhist home. I originally come from a Buddhist home, so I understand Buddhism and ancestor worship. My father is the first son's family for 400 years, and we honor Confucianism. We honored our ancestors by doing ancestor ceremony many times a year, and tons of relatives would gather in my home to honor. So my grandma, she was a faithful Buddhist, very faithful. She's done a lot for the temples. She passed away when I was in elementary school, and she was at the hospital dying from cancer. My mom, as the first son's wife, the first daughter-in-law, in an Asian culture, it means a lot. She is the most responsible person. So she was like always tending to her needs, taking care of mother-in-law faithfully. And she started screaming. So my mom, when I was little, my mom came and told me, her grandma is screaming, "Don't take me away! Don't take me away!" And then she would wake up, and she told my mom, there are little girls in red gowns trying to take her away to hell. They said, "It's time. Ma'am, it's time." And she was screaming and yelling because she knew that was not a pleasant place that she was going to. She could feel it. So I guess when your spirit is about to leave, you can kind of see what's waiting ahead. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Otherwise, why would they scream, right? And she did that for a few days. And then my mom knew, oh, she's gonna pass away. Yeah. And then she did. She passed away. So, so then we sometimes see with our guts, like with our spiritual eyes, instead of our physical eyes, because our physical eyes can't see the spirit, right? But somehow there are moments when we can see the spiritual realm, right? That spiritual eyes are more open when you are in close communion with God, when you have a closer relationship with God. Yeah. And David had a very close relationship with God, and his eyes were open and he could see You knit me together in my mother's womb. How many of you remember when you were in your mother's womb? Essentially nobody. But he's saying, with his spiritual eyes, he's saying, oh, wow, I see my past. In my mother's womb, you knit me together with the genes and all that. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Inner parts of my body you created. He saw that God created. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. God is the master artist. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion. You know, how many of you remember your mother and father together and the moment you were created, you know? How many of your parents know the moment you were created? Probably not, right? They get to know like as 1 month passed. Usually 3 months passed and they know, right? But to know that you were created, not many people. But God saw when I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. So that makes me think, maybe today is a precious day, because it's recorded in God's book. And I can make a difference today. I may not be able to control the circumstances, but I can control how I respond to it. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God? They cannot be numbered. So God is thinking a lot of his children, all of us. Do you know that? Oh. Lena, would you say as a parent you think of your children a lot? Practically all the time. Yeah? How many times a day? Many times a day. God is like that times 100. He's thinking each one of us. How many thoughts do you have for us? Oh, it cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. Oh God, if you only would destroy the wicked. Oh, okay, there's an abrupt transition. Why was it talking about like, oh, me being formed in mother's womb? Oh, you created me fearfully and wonderfully, and all of a sudden, oh, destroy the wicked. What's going on here? Okay, the reason is because he is in close communion with God. He's in God's presence, and he's seeing, oh, you know what? I see that how much you love me. And you know what, God, I love you too. Oh, by the way, look around. Because of the fall that we talked about, Genesis chapter 2, right? The serpent, the one who opposes God, called Satan, Lucifer. He and his army. Ooh, they're against you. Ooh, they're surrounding us, trying to take us down, drag us down to hell, so that they can break your heart. I see that. As I understand how much you love me, oh, I hate your enemies. Yeah. So if you could only destroy the wicked, he's not cursing. David was a man of love. He embraced his enemies. So he's not talking about human beings. Oh, he's saying, oh, you know what? Your enemies, God. The Lucifer, who is working behind to make people do bad, fall, get sick, fight, become unholy. I hate him. Get out of my life, you murderers. They blaspheme you. Meaning, blasphemy is what? Talking badly about God. Your enemies misuse your name. Sometimes people use God's name and they do bad things. Very unfortunate. Oh Lord, shouldn't I hate those who hate you? Shouldn't I despise those who oppose you? Yes, I hate them with total hatred, for your enemies are my enemies. Search. Oh, by the way, I could be your enemy too. I love you, but the moment I don't talk with you, the moment I start hearing other people, my mind is a battlefield, and I give in to the thoughts and people saying that are unwholesome, I can become your enemy. So please search me, oh God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out everything in me that offends you, because I don't want to offend you. And lead me along the path of everlasting life. So the moment he encounters the great God, he's humbled. Oh Lord, check me out. Please search me. And if there's anything that you don't like, please tell me. Because I want to get that out of my system. I want to be more like you. I want to be holy. I want to be loving. I want to be righteous. I'm going to be more like you. That's his final confession. Right? So my prayer and hope is that you read Psalm 139 at one point, maybe often, whenever you can turn to it, whenever you need to. This really impacted my life. I was like, whoa, really, God is a wonderful God. He's my daddy. He's my shepherd. You know, sometimes I do dumb things, or sometimes I'm too worried. Other times I'm like, oh, I'm so mad, at these people. Whatever that happens, God is in charge of my life and he loves me. Yeah. So just remember that, and that is an important part of our lesson. I'm going to show you a video. So we are talking about ethnography. Okay, so ethnography 2. Yeah, we talked about linguistics. Oh, sorry, we're on chapter lesson 4, ethnography part 1. I went ahead of myself. So ethnography is what? Ethnography is the recording process, a branch of anthropology. If you turn to page 20, let's read this first before we watch the video. Okay, we're going to try that later, but let's turn to page 20. Yeah, let's start from Yusei. Yeah, let's come from the back, like zigzag on this. Okay, so page 20. What is ethnography? Ethnography. Sorry.
Wait, what page is that?
20. So 2 sentences per person, okay? Say it.
A branch of anthropology and a systematic study of individual cultures.
Yeah, so ethnography is a branch of anthropology. We are talking about cultural anthropology in this class, right? So it's a branch, and it's a systematic study of individual cultures, yes.
Explores cultural phenomena from the point of view of the subject of the study.
Yes. And let's see, Tokoro?
Oh yeah. Type of social research, examining the behavior of the participants in a given social situation and understanding the group members' own interaction.
Interpretation, yeah, so, yeah. And then?
Relies heavily on participant observation.
Yeah, so it's basically observing the behaviors in your culture, right? And then, it could be your own culture too, but you're observing the behavior and how people interpret it, and understanding why they behave in a certain way. Yeah. Okay, Kakeru?
Its origin in social and cultural anthropology in nearly 20th century.
Anthropology is in a new field. Yeah, go ahead.
Mainly used qualitative methods.
Yeah, qualitative methods, quantitative method, qualitative method. Alright, so what are these? What is an example of quantitative method in a research?
Based on quantity or based on quality?
Yeah, based on quantity meaning what? Have you participated in any kind of survey? Yeah, so survey can be both quantitative and qualitative, but anyway, say, quantitative would be like, okay, like voting, or like when you answer simple questions like yes or no, how many yeses, how many no's, so they're basically relying on the number, like the quantity. But qualitative is more like interviews, like going in depth, like hearing the story, or observing their behaviors. Quantitative element would be, oh, mother and child interaction, the child actually said 10 words in 2 minutes. That's quantitative. But then hearing the mother's story, like how did you raise this child, that would be qualitative. And qualitative can be, and oftentimes are, followed by like series of observation or series of questionnaires, like say follow-up. You want to see how the twins can be, so nature versus nurture. The same monozygotic twins, they were born from the same parents, they have similar genes, but they're raised in completely different environment. One person at home, another person in a foster care, or maybe in a different culture or something like that, right? And then you observe and do the data, quantitative research, qualitative research, but after so many years, like 10 years later, how did they grow differently? How did they become differently? So you follow up. So oftentimes, it can be quantitative and qualitative, but oftentimes like it can be done in a longevity study. Following up 10 years later, 20 years later. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Okay. So did you read qualitative methods?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Antonella, did you read a holistic study?
A holistic study and so includes a brief history. Traditional communities, youth gangs, religious cults, and organizations of various kinds.
So it can be done in various settings. Okay, sir, can I ask your name? Could I ask your name, please?
Joshua.
Joshua, could you read the next 2 sentences?
Sorry, my class is.
Yeah, but you can read these 2 sentences.
Yeah, not see.
Oh, you can't see, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, sure, okay. Jen, can you please read the last 2 sentences?
I don't have to.
Okay, can somebody, okay, you don't have a book either, okay. Okay, you can buy them from the office. The physical presence or using the label that has relied on interviews or documents, virtual or online ethnography. So before, like years back, maybe 5 years back, we probably didn't have like that much online ethnography, but these days a lot of people are using it. Yeah, so the times are changing. All right, so could you read Roman numeral 2, origin of ethnography? Oh, you
Sorry, I don't have a book either.
Lena, okay.
Origin of ethnography. The Roman historian Publius Cornelius Tacitus. The Greek folk, people, nation.
Ethno. So ethnography. So we're dissecting. Ethnos mean?
Ethno means folk, people, nation. Grapho means it's I write.
Yeah. So I write about people. That's ethnography. Yeah. And an example would be the Odyssey. How many of you have read Odyssey when you were growing up? Oh, Iliad and Odyssey. Yeah, Iliad, Odyssey. Okay. Yeah, one of the classics. One of the oldest writing ever can be found. Yeah. All right. This morning my brain is not working. What's your name again? Carrie, could you read 2 sentences, please?
From Herodotus 4,
Mm-hmm.
the Agricola, Jews in the histories and Germania.
Yeah, these are all famous first ever written ethnographies. Well, they're not written for that purpose, actually, you know, but later we're considering them as ethnographies. Okay? And yeah, so Tacitus, Germania, the sole surviving full-scale monograph. Wow. Right? Yoon?
Relatively coherent subgenres in
Byzantine literature. Yes. It's a subgenre. Okay, great. So I think we know like general. We have a general idea of what it is like. So okay, I wonder if I can actually pull out. I thought that was there, but maybe not. Yeah, so I'm going to show you what ethnography looks like and participant observation. Yeah, it's fairly interesting, and you'll kind of resonate with them because actually before you are aware, you actually have been doing participant observation. Did you know that? I think I downloaded this, but maybe. How did I do this last time? I showed you a video last time, and how come? Does anybody know how to paste the video? Let's see, no, not this. I did it last time, I can't remember. Oh, paste it. I'm pretty sure I did that and saved it, but I don't know why they all disappeared. All right, photography, and yeah, here we go. Photography, and there's this kind of selection.
first. Yeah, make the sound.
This is the seminar presentation for qualitative research. This week we are going to discuss ethnography. In our text, ethnography is described as writing culture. Another description, which I like, is portrait of the people. This type of research entails participation either as an observer, interviewer, and/or participant observer to gain an understanding of how people's lives are realized in their world. Ethnographic research seeks to understand on a deep level how people's reality makes sense to them and has a meaning in their lived setting. This is accomplished by interviewing, observing, and recording people's lives and activities in their natural setting. Because the ethnographer is expected to deliver a descriptive narrative about a group's context and activities, long-term or longitudinal studies of events and activities are not unusual. These events and activities may be specific to a religious group, a family, a political setting, or economic life. The participants are in their natural setting and observations are made, recorded, analyzed, and cited. Ethnographers may also use content analysis to study various types of documents, as well as cultural artifacts to grasp historical context. A debate exists about whether or not objectivity is possible in an ethnographic study as well as qualitative research in general. Thus, an ethnography can be said to be an interpretive perspective. There are three types of bias which might get in the way of an accurate accounting. First is the sampling bias, which means the sample population is skewed or non-representative. This bias might happen because the informants might not be generalizable to any setting. Further, the field location must be a microcosm of a larger view. What happens in one place may not be happening everywhere. And the last factor in the sampling bias is time. Longitudinal studies generally work best in an ethnographic consideration because time can create its own bias. The second bias, which might limit objectivity, is theoretical bias. This type of bias comes about because of preconceived notions that the researcher has at the outset, and informants or locations may be selected because they are consistent with the already supposed outcome. The third bias is that of a personal nature. As researchers, our personalities, cultural orientations, social status, and political ideations can color how we perceive what we are studying. To set up our research, selecting your location should be carefully considered as to its viability of access. Establish key informants who are significant to and help ease entry. These informants provide critical information. Know that certain researcher traits such as age, gender, social class, and racial ethnic background can enhance or inhibit access. Understand who your gatekeepers are and build relationships which will be invaluable. Formal gatekeepers provide formal permission to enter the setting for the purpose of research. Informal gatekeepers can provide entry because of their position or influence over the setting. Your ability to move away from outsider status is critical, so building relationships is important. What roles might a researcher play in order to participate? There are varying degrees of participation. First is that of complete observer. The complete observer's identity is hidden and makes observations of and in the setting, being careful not to interrupt the natural flow of what is happening. Sometimes recording the activity with a hidden camera or a one-way mirror to avoid detection. The next role is participant as observer. In this role, the researcher's identity is known. The role of researcher is limited because their open identity makes the participant subject to changes in behavior. As researchers' roles gain depth of function, the next part one could play is the observer as participant. The researcher's identity is known and is also a part of any activities. Some distance is created, which would minimize the researcher's impact on the setting or the people and/or situation being studied. The last type of participation is the complete participant. who actively engages in the setting. If this is the type of researcher on board with the research, care must be taken to not cloud their perception of the activities. Evaluating data will require an organized outlook of how the data is recorded and assessed. The data is recorded in field notes, and opinions abound about methods for doing this because keeping notes on research is most likely personalized to the researcher. On-the-fly notes are phrases and words which will help the researcher to remember events or ideas occurring while making observations. Thick descriptions are exacting descriptions that include all of the senses a researcher needs to recall such matters as words said, things smelled, and visuals for accuracy of depiction. Data analysis, interpretation, and theories are a linking between on-the-fly and thick descriptions. The interpretive aspect of one's quick notes combined with thick descriptions. The researcher personalizes and reflectively examines his or own responses to include emotions about what is being researched. And finally, the accounting or summary provides a look at what research has discovered and what the researcher surmises is its meaning. We have defined ethnography and discussed its place in research. Next, we look at different biases. We talked about setting up the research, types of participation, and finding ways to assess, interpret, and document data.
And welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello.
Right. So,
My name is Olivia Brown, and I am currently
okay. So, imagine yourself as an ethnographer. So, well, you've been learning culture unintentionally. I mean, because you chose to live in a different culture, you chose to come to this country, or you had a cultural exposure and you just had to live your life there, and you are actually indirectly engaging ethnography. Although you might not be recording every single thing, or you might not be actively engaging in like quantitative or qualitative research, but you're indirectly engaging in it while you're living in that culture, right? So imagine yourself as an ethnographer, and we talked about some of the bias, right? Well, before we go into talk about the bias, let me ask you some questions. Okay. What are some of the behaviors? Because ethnography is about observing the behaviors. So what are some of the behaviors in a new culture you're in that is different, that are different from the behaviors of your own? Okay, and then how did you interpret it? And how do you know, how can you verify? How can you tell your own interpretation is accurate? Or not accurate? All right, so let's It might have been 2 groups of 3 people. I guess I like the number. So feel free to get up from your seats, move, don't leave anybody out. Yeah, that's one thing that I always emphasize in my class. Get into groups of 3, discuss these questions, and we're gonna have a chance to share. Okay, now go. People at the back, I know it's inconvenient, but get up and move, please. Introduce yourself and discuss the question.
물 사람이 있으면
人を動かして自分は楽をする。自分が楽をするために。 名前書いてろと思って一番上に名前書いてあったの。9時って書いてあった。
それで組み合わせしようとして知らなかったの。ああ、知らなかった。
Oh, really?
Yeah, in my country, everyone thinks they.
でも9時空いてるんですよ。
It's so deep because from my viewpoint, everyone when they're in the road driving, whenever you're riding a motorcycle or riding a car, they think they become very rude to other people, and they think they have the right to have in my country, but in here. You people have. Oh, you already turned it. Oh, go ahead. It's like so polite. Oh my God, in here is it's so nice people.
That's a good one.
You always celebrate Christmas. Like in China, in China we always celebrate New Year. On that day we usually eat fast.
We're from Taiwan. Your name is James. Turn around and from Japan.
I'm Lina. Lina.
I'm Ken from China, mainland. Okay, so okay, yes. Oh, so you don't say hi to strangers?
Even their words
you just pass by.
Yeah, for example, I was in
I think so. Well, how do you interrupt? How do you interrupt? How do you interpret.
Interpret.
I think interpret is like how you react to the situation. How you think it's
Because
good?
in case it really depends, right? So when some people say hi to you, how do you say baby or just
You feel afraid, you feel like shy, or how do you feel like you
I say hi.
Do you think it's accurate, it's good, it's better than Japan, or it's just
I think here, seldom people say
It's scary.
do you guys want to share first?
I think when people in the America to 太热情了overly welcome to us, then we just say fine, good, everything is good. That's how I react. Because I don't speak good English, all I can do is nice.
Oh, really
Good.
Well, do you think it's good, or?
if they say something that you don't understand English, and what do you think? I think they might talking about this one.
Just smile.
Just smile and let it flow.
Yeah, and then reply them, yeah, good, yes.
Yes,
yes.
With the body language, invitations are good. Well, I think our conversations are good.
More smile,
And
more
we're from
Oh, I feel there is one behavior which is different. When I was in China, when we go out, right? Let's say I go to school or just go out, we have to dress up. We have to do some, look pretty. Otherwise, people will judge. But here, the first time I was here, I was all dressed up, pretty dress, pretty makeup, and then I came to school. Everyone has sleepers. They have sleepers with the socks. We don't do that. It's very like unpolite back in Asia, you know? And also some people they have sleepers with the toe out. It's even worse. So I was like, my interpret, I was like, I think it's pretty comfortable. I don't like to dress up every day to go out, you know? So later on, I started to wear sleepers as well. And like hoodie, just leggings, that's it. So I think it's really good culture because for girls, we won't less about appearance. We focus more about inner, like intelligence or like thoughts, these kind of things. So I think it's really good.
Do you wear uniform in college?
No. I went to college, Santa Monica College.
Oh, I mean in China.
High school, yes, we were uniform. Yes, but still, even though we have uniforms, but we change the uniforms to different style, you know? So it's like very competitive, very focused on appearance outside, not really inside. So here it's very tough.
In my field, like yours, in my country before, if you go to university, to the college, the way you dress, the way you go to the school is a different here. In here, so the rules say that you can even wear the slipper to go to the college, and no one will care about that one. No one will not protest you. But back in my country, everyone will talk, hey, what are you doing? Why you dress like that? It's not like polite. It's not polite to dress like that to go to the school. It's not.
Talking about polite, Japanese know a lot about polite. Japanese has to wear uniform in school. To college or only to high school? Only to high school. I think Japanese care about the uniform more than our culture.
Are we wrapping up?
No.
Okay, let's talk in the big group.
You gotta study more.
All right, seems like Andrea some fun conversation. one? All right, so let's come back to the big group. Yeah, sorry for interruption, but I guess otherwise like you'll have to stay here longer, so I want to honor your time. So what are some of the things that you notice? What are some of the behaviors that you see that are very different from your own culture? Yeah, anybody?
So I can go first.
Yeah.
So when I was in China, we always have to worry about our appearance. We always have to dress nice. We have our posture nice. We have makeup on, otherwise we feel naked.
same in Korean culture.
Yeah, but first time I was here back in 2017, and I went to college and I saw people having their sleepers with open toes, and sleepers with the socks, and they have a hoodie, a big hoodie with leggings. You know, we don't usually wear leggings in Asia. People, my mom will say like, you apparently not wearing your pants because you have your butt out all the time. I was like, oh no, that's not true. But here, people just really pursue really comfortable wearing.
Yeah.
So that's very different.
Yeah. How did you interpret that?
Well, I learned from it, and I started to wear like them myself to make myself more comfortable, and I become more confident about myself. I focus more about inner side of myself as well.
Oh, I see. You could care less a little bit about your appearance.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Maybe something like this. I saw that, when I went to American high school and college still, I was just into new culture. I saw that people were serving, like they come to you with, glass or dish or something nice, and then they ask you like, what would you like in your coffee? I'm talking about my friendly neighbors, or I'm not talking about the restaurant where this, waitress is serving. I'm talking about friends. What would you like in your coffee? Oh, do you like it black? Oh, how dark would you like? And like, there are like series of questions. I'm like, oh, this is very different because I think I came from a culture initially, and our culture is also evolving, changing, right? But I came from a culture where people are like, oh, you just give them what you think is the best. Yeah, you make your own decision. That's the best service. That's the best kindness. You don't ask so many questions, So I was doing that. I brought like coffee for everyone, the same kind, same kinds of dish, and people all were like, oh, I can't eat this. I'm vegetarian, or oh, I can't drink this coffee because I don't take sugar or cream or whatever. Oh, this is too light, whatever. Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, next time I know better. And so I learned over time, oh, you're supposed to ask questions. Okay, and also on a similar note. So at first I was like, oh, why are they asking me so many questions? I just do what you want to do. I interpreted that not as like kindness. I'm like, why are they doing that? It's like too much, But later my interpretation was inaccurate. It was their expression of being considerate. I'm being considerate for you. That's why I ask you so many questions, right? Also, when I brought my stuff, thinking this is the best for them, okay, and they're like, oh, I can't take this. I interpreted that as, why are you refusing my kind service? But that was an inaccurate interpretation because I guess the best service for them is to ask them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, right? Also, on a similar note, because you don't want to bother people in my culture, if there are napkins or something that's in front of another person, we're supposed to just reach. Like, don't ask them, don't bother them, just reach and then grab it yourself. But in this culture, that's rude. You better ask them, oh, can you please hand me that napkin? Can you please hand me that dish? Like, bother every single time, because that's being polite, right? So like my interpretation of that was wrong. Well, I'm doing it, I'm trying not to bother, I'm just trying to be nice. And they're like, whoa, you're reaching my space, that's rude. So the interpretation can be very different. It can be accurate or inaccurate. Any other people?
the driving way, the way they drive in here, I think that's more polite than in my country.
Oh.
Yes. Because in here, when someone already give the signal, the car from the other lane will give the way. But back in my country, you give already the signal. The other lane is just trying to hit you. So from what I learned in here is the people in here is maybe more of the patient. So their patient level is more higher, or maybe in some of the hours, in the rush hours, maybe some of them is the driver is like my country too, but there's depend on the situation.
Yeah.
But most of them is very polite.
Oh, even in LA? Okay. So compared to other cities, LA? Yes.
But my mom is from Texas. The way when she lived in the Texas, she always say, if others people already signal and you don't give them the way, the next thing happen is you will be had a gunshot in your car. Yeah, it happens. It happens. So
yes, in Texas, you're free to carry your gun.
Yeah, it's better for you to lower your emotion, lower your attitude, and then just give them the.
Right. You don't want to risk your life.
Even just the honking, just the honking, they already feel offended, and then the next thing you saw is the gun is already in your window.
Yes, I even saw a sticker, a bumper sticker. Keep honking. I'm preparing my rifle or something like that. Like, yeah. Preparing my rifle. You know, like keep honking. Yeah. Yeah, that was, yeah. So anybody else? Thanks for sharing that.
In my culture, usually in class, people don't talk. Students don't talk, and we don't communicate. We don't discuss nothing at all. Just quiet and listen, and then take tests.
Yeah.
Test every class or every other class. So that's very different. So when I enter class, I'm afraid to talk. Especially it's in English. It's not my first language. So I'm trying to talk like our classmate. She's brave.
She's slightly Americanized already.
Yes.
Right? Yes. A good student in Asian culture, I guess, in general, is supposed to stay and just listen rather than speak, right? But that's not true. I guess I'm Americanized a little bit too, like making you talk. Okay. But yeah, I guess a little bit of acculturation happens without knowing, because everyone else is doing it, right? Cool, cool. Alrighty, it was wonderful having you, and I'll let you go 3 minutes before. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your grace and mercy. Thank you for great classmates that we have. Thank you that you are a God who lays your hands on our head to bless and to guide. Your eyes are upon us. We thank you for being faithful shepherd, and as we leave this place, continue to be a good shepherd for us. We thank you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
하얗게 1시ぐらいで順番待って